Welcome back to the vlog. We're going to be over at Capital Casino playing in the 1-3 game. This is part of our 5K a month challenge. This is the second week of September. Of course, the best way to win more is to play more, right? So we've been adding an extra session in our schedule and also extending our sessions for a few extra hours, trying to achieve our goal. All these hands come from the first day of the week. I did add one or two other hands in at the end of the vlog just to show how some of the craziness continued throughout the week. But here we go. Capital Casino 1-3. There is a $6 straddle. It's folded to me in the cutoff. I got King Jack offsuit. Definitely worth putting in a raise. I make it $25. It's folded back around the straddler who likes to mix it up with me. He goes ahead and puts in the call. So just the two of us heading to a flop with $54 in the center. Flop comes out 10-7 deuce with two spades. Not a very good flop for my particular hand. He checks it to me. I'm not going to c-bet this. This is a type of hand that fits well with his range, so I check it back. We see a turn card of a king of diamonds. Yeah, that definitely hits my range. He checks it over to me again. I think he'll probably fold if I fire, so I decided just to check this one back, make my checking range a little bit stronger. River card comes is now the 8 of clubs. It does make some possible straights, but he leads out for a very, very small bet of $7. Now, I am not going to be calling for $7. Usually when I see these little bets, I just pretend like it was checked to me, and I figured I'll bet about half pot, so I make it 25. He doesn't think too long before putting in the call, and I show him that I have a king, and we win our first pot of the day. I don't get involved in any pots for about an hour until this hand came up. I'm in the small blind with ace-jack offsuit, an aggressive player who's been raising a lot. From the hijack opens for a raise to $15. This is a hand that you can either fold or 3-bet. This one, I decided to 3-bet. I make it $55, and he puts in the quick call. Flop comes king, 10, 8 with two spades. I do have the jack of spades, but it does hit my perceived range. There's a big face card out there, and I could easily have ace king or king queen or something like that. So I fire for $40. He thinks for a little bit before putting in the call. Ideally, we'll catch a queen, but instead we get the 8 of diamonds. This is the moment of truth. If he had a king, I think he wouldn't have hesitated as long as he did. So I'm thinking he might have a hand like mine, like ace-jack, ace-queen. So I decided to put him to a little bit of a test, put out a $100 bet there. If he doesn't have something strong, basically if he doesn't have a king, I think he's going to fold. I have no way I'm putting him on an 8. So afterwards, he mucks it, and we take one down with a little bit of a bluff. I pick up pocket aces under the gun. Pretty good hand to have, so I decide to raise to $15. Pretty standard. It's folded around to the player at the end of the table who's in the hijack position. He makes it $45. Everyone else gets out of the way, and now it's back to me. Now, a little backstory on this player. I feel he's one of the best players in the Sacramento area, and he's very knowledgeable about poker in general. Against such a player, I think the best way to play this is just as close to GTO as possible, because I don't think he's going to be making very many errors along the way. But I also feel that he might be a little bit light here, and that he's trying to make some sort of play. He does that occasionally because he's very balanced, because he's a good player. So here I'm supposed to 3-bet, 4-bet. And instead, I decided to call and then make my move on the flop after he puts out his continuation bet. So I ended up calling, which I think is probably a mistake, and I'm sure Zeus will agree. Flop comes Jack 7-3 rainbow. Beautiful flop. I mean, unless he's raising with pocket jacks, I'm in pretty good position here. I feel he'll c-bet his entire range here, so his bet sizing of $30 doesn't really give me too much information. But if I want to build a pot, I think if he has some sort of jack or better hand, that he would definitely continue. As I said, the only thing I'm really worried about is pocket jacks at this point. There aren't any really any two pair combinations that he can have, where he can play Jack 7 or 7-3 like this. Small chance he has pocket 3s or pocket 7s. But overall, I think I'm going to put in a raise here, just like I planned pre-flop. And if he has something, he will continue. So I make it $100. Now, this is a very dry board. I think he's only going to continue with most of his jacks. Some overpairs if I happen to have my read wrong that he was making some sort of play. There's a small chance he'll do it with like 2 overcards and a backdoor flush draw. Maybe some sort of weaker pair, but he decides to make the call. So I'm thinking he has some piece of this, but not a lot. Turn card is probably the worst card in the deck. Granted, if he was raising with, say, Jack 10 suited, there's 2 combinations of that. He's now made 2 pair and he has me beat. But that's not really what I'm concerned about. I'm really concerned about that he had, say, a Jack of Hearts, and since I have 2 black aces, he probably had Ace Jack of Hearts, or Ace Jack of Diamonds, or some combination of King Jack, Queen Jack, where he picked up a flush draw. And now if he has a pair and a flush draw, he's going to be very, very sticky. If I bet, say, 3/4 pot, I think he's going to come along. So I decided, let's go ahead and bomb it. He has about $350 left in his stack. If he's going to be calling with a pair and a flush draw, I'm going to make him pay the maximum. So I shove all in. Now his initial reaction was, oh, well, I wasn't quite expecting that, but he takes a peek at his cards and he's saying, I don't think I can fold this. And he goes ahead and makes the call. The way he said it made it sound like he had a big draw. I asked him if he had King, Queen of Hearts or something. He said something like that. And then when the 8 of clubs comes on the river, he shows 8, 7 of hearts. Of course, it stings to get your aces cracked this way, but, he didn't do anything that was too unusual. I did let him into the hand so I could build a big pot, and I just happened to get sucked out on. This is one of those hands where if I would have 4-bet pre-flop, he probably would just fold, and we would have moved on with the next one, and I would have won 45 bucks. But I wanted to get a lot more out of that pair of aces than just $45, so I'm not too upset with the way I played the hand. A little bit frustrated with the outcome, of course, but I decided this is not going to tilt me. I'm going to play my game and just grind it out. I had $500 to my stack, and we get in this situation where a player has a $7 straddle. He has a fairly short stack of about $150. I look down at Ace 10 offsuit. I decided to raise to $20 here. Looking to get a little bit of action from a player in the blinds. Also get a call from one other player, and we head 3 ways to a flop that comes out Ace 6-6. The player under the gun checks. I decided this is a good hand to check for pot control. It gets checked around. Turn card comes is a 7 of clubs. My opponent in the under gun position checks again. I figured if he had a 6, he would make a small bet. So I think my ace is probably good here. So I make a small bet, and he quickly puts in a call. River card comes is a 4. Shouldn't change anything. I'm putting my opponent on a small ace at this point. I need to get some value out of him, but how much can I get? He checks it over. I decided to go for $75. He doesn't think too long before putting in the call. And of course, when he does, I show him that I have the ace with a 10 kicker. I'm pretty sure he had an ace with a smaller kicker. There is a $10 straddle on this hand. 2 players limp in for the $10, and I'm in the low jack with pocket queens. Pretty good hand in my point of view. I decided to raise it for $50. Normally I would raise it a little bit larger than this, but there are some short stacks at the table, and I thought that if one of them decided to go, I wanted to have the opportunity to re-raise if they decide to shove. Anyway, it comes to the player on the button who thinks for a long time before finally ended up folding. I don't know whether he had a tough decision or this was totally Hollywood. Player in the big blind puts in the call. The $10 straddler does, and the other one folds out. So we're going three ways to this flop with 171 in it. Big blind leads out for his remaining stack, which is not very much. The other player decides to fold. Of course, I'm not going anywhere. I got an overpair. Turn card comes as an 8, river card comes as a 9, and the player with the short stack had ace king and didn't shove preflop. Interesting. I'm in the big blind with pocket fours. A player who's been on tilt right now opens for $19 with a fairly short stack. I was probably just going to fold this, but the player in the button decides to put in a call, so I figured it'd be worth a while to chase it. Still kind of light, but I got a good flop when it comes queen 6-4 with 2 diamonds. I checked it. The player who is tilting in short stack goes all in for $45. Player on the button looks like he's interested in the hand, makes the call for the 45. I think he's more inclined to have a queen here than a flush draw, but either way, I'm going to put some more money in the pot. I got a really good hand, and he either has a draw or top pair. Both of them he's not going to be folding to a $80 raise, so might as well get some money in the pot. Of course, he decides to put in the call, which is good. We got a little side pot brewing, and the turn card comes, well, not the greatest. It's the ace of diamonds. Of course, the obvious problem with this is it brings in a flush, which beats 3 of a kind, and that would be bad. The second one that's not as obvious to many players is that it is an overcard to the queen. So if he had a hand with a queen, now this acts as a scare card, and I might not get any action. He has about 160 left. I decided I'm just going to jam. I need to deny equity if he happens to have, say, king, queen with a queen of diamonds, or just a one-card flush draw with a pair. He goes ahead and does make the call, and we see a river card of a jack of diamonds. Of course, this is not the run out you want to see when you flop to set, to see running diamonds on, and there's any diamond makes a flush type of situation now. But I roll my hand over, and my opponent flashes that he has ace queen. The all-in player did not have a diamond in his hand, and we end up winning. So this is a 7-way limp pot, and I'm in the big blind with ace jack offsuit. I say like 90% of the time I would just squeeze the hell out of this and see if I can take down the pot. But one of the adjustments I'm making is that maybe have a little bit of a tighter squeezing range against multiple opponents. Of course, the downside of this is you let a lot of opponents play garbage hands cheaply, and if they flop something that you don't expect, of course, they're going to bust you. But I'm going to be a little bit cautious on this. I'm not going to get too overly aggressive unless I think that I am way ahead. Flop comes out jack 6-4 rainbow. Pretty good flop. The player who was tilting bets out for $20, gets a quick call from the player next to him, and the player in the cutoff also puts in the call for the $20. Now, all three of these players have what I consider to be a shortest stack. The biggest stack is from the cutoff, who has about $240 in front of him. The first player who's tilting, I'm putting him on a jack. Okay, he's just leaning out, $20, trying to figure out where he's at. The one calling next to him probably has a jack also. I know that takes care of all the jacks, but he might be calling with something else. But the third player, I'm definitely putting him on a draw. The way he looked at his cards while the other one was playing makes me think he has either something like 5-3 or 5-7 in his hand. And against all those three hands, I am a huge favorite. So I'm going to go ahead and check raise to 140. Now, I'm in the blinds. I can represent a whole lot of stuff, but I'm sure ace-jack is way ahead of everybody at this point. And these guys are willing to gamble. I'll make them pay a fair price to do so. First player folds rather quickly. The next one also lets it go. And the final player shoves the remaining part of his stack in there. There's no way I'm folding. I know he's on a draw. Turn card is a 7 of clubs. River is an 8 of spades, and he shows 7-5 for the straight. One of those days. All right, just gotta shake it off. Here we go. We're in the big blind. We got pocket tens. There are 2 limpers, and the small blind completes. I raised to 20. I got a pretty good hand. I end up getting 2 callers for the 20. So we're going 3 ways to a flop with 63 in, and the flop comes 7-4 deuce rainbow. Well, I'm going to bet 2/3 pot here, $40, thinking that it would kind of stop some people with overcards from calling. First player does put in the call for the $40. Second player also puts in the call for the $40. So we're going to the turn with 183, and we get the deuce of diamonds. Really good card. I mean, there's no flush draws possible. Somehow if he had 7-4, he's counterfeited. I'm going to go big here because he either has a 7 in his hand or he has something like 5-6. And the way these players have been paying for draws, I'm not going to make it cheap. I'm going to go big. So I make it 150. Now, I would think that most people would just muck, say, a 7, no matter what their kicker is. And even people with 5-6 would just muck, and I would just take this pot down. But the first player, after some thought, decides that that is a very fair price. Now, I really think he has like a 5-6 in his hand. I think he, by the way I'm betting, he knows that maybe a 7's no good. River card comes is a king of clubs. Both of them miss. I jam just because if he has a 7, maybe he's going to be calling. He only had $150 left in front of him, but he instantly mucks, and we win this one. 2 players limp in for the $3, and a player who's been playing a very, very tight range raises to 16. Now, it's the kind of the size bet that doesn't scream like a big pair, maybe something like ace, king, ace, queen. But I'm not going to re-raise him. I got ace, jack suited. It plays well multi-way, so I don't mind calling with this occasionally. And so I do, and we end up going 6 ways to the flop. And the flop comes out ace, 10, 6, 2 spades, 1 club. So I got top pair and a backdoor flush draw. It's checked to the player on my right, who bets kind of small for $20. I'm just going to call here. He could have maybe pocket tens, ace 10, but more likely ace queen or ace king. And another player called behind us. Turn card comes is a jack of hearts, giving me top 2 pair. First player checks. Player to my right now bets for $50. Pretty sure I have him beat here. I'm a little concerned about giving a cheap draw to the player behind, just because he could easily have some sort of straight or flush draw at this point. So I decided to raise to 225. My thinking is, if he has pocket tens, it's going to hurt. If he has king, queen of spades, it's going to hurt. But most likely he has ace, queen, or ace, king. If I'm lucky, he has ace 10. He tanks for a very long time. And by the way he was mumbling to himself, it sounded like he had ace queen. And after some thought, he said that 2 pair is good, and he makes a very, very tight laydown. So that ended up being the last interesting hand of the day. I ended up playing for 5 hours. But I have to say, the craziness of the week went on just like that. In fact, here's one where I have pocket aces in the hijack. Player min raises, or almost min raises. He made it open for $10. He has a kind of a short stack, so I want to get action from the bigger stack. So I made it 25, and we end up going 4 ways to a flop. That comes queen, jack, deuce with the queen, jack of clubs. I double checked to see if my black ace was a club, but it was a spade. Player leads out for $35. Now the player who opened for $10 makes it 80. I'm really putting him on some sort of a flush draw here, maybe some sort of straight draw with it. I decided I'm just going to call, and when the blank comes on the turn, I'm going to go ahead and put in a big bet if it's checked to me. The other player who led out for the 35, he also puts in the call, and we see a 7 of hearts. That's a perfect card, shouldn't really connect to anything unless someone has a queen and a backdoor flush draw or something like that. It's checked to the player to my right, who checks it quickly to me. I jam all in. I have him covered. The other player has me covered, but he quickly mucks. He thinks for a little bit. He has about, I don't know, $200 left in front of him. He's getting a pretty good price with a flush draw, so he goes ahead and makes the call. River to 7 of diamonds, and he shows me the king 7 of clubs. I also had several other hands that went poorly. One of which is the first hand of the day. I ran into a guy with pocket aces, and then about 10 minutes later I picked up aces and I got 2 outed by another player. And then this happened. So I'm stuck about $900. I bought another $500 to add to my stack. I'm in the big blind with 9-6 offsuit. I didn't even start my camera rolling, that's why there's no video of it. We go 6 ways to a flop. That comes out 9-7-4. So I got an open ender, and I checked it. Player to my left bets $10. I get a call from the next player and one other player. Comes back around to me. Of course, I'm going to be calling with my draw. Turn card comes as a beautiful 5 of hearts. I make the nuts. I decided to check it. I figure with 3 players behind me, one of them is going to have a 6. The player in the under the gun position bets for $70. The next player doesn't think too long before putting in the call. The third player decides to put in the fold, and now it's up to me. Of course, this is the opportune time to put in a big raise here. So I decided to make it $270. So it's $200 more to my opponents. Player in the under the gun position doesn't think long before making the call, and the other player feels like he's getting a pretty good price to call whatever he has. Most likely they both have 6s. Now I have a 6 of hearts, so I don't think anyone has a heart flush draw, but I don't have the 6 of spades, so I'm looking to dodge a spade. River card comes, ace of clubs. Of course, this is a beautiful card. I still have the nuts. I shove all in. I have them both covered. The under the gun player only has like 20 something bucks left. He puts in the call. The other player is more reluctant. He says that the pot's is too goddamn big and that he's going to have to put in the call. I show my hand, and of course it's good. The player that was in the under the gun position actually had 5-6 of spades, flopped a straight with a straight flush draw. The other player had a 6 also. So I ended up winning a $1,470 pot with a piece of garbage, a 9-6 offsuit. Yeah, it just showed how crazy the week was. I couldn't win with my strong hands on a lot. I think I had aces 5 times this week. I think I won with them once. And all the other times it got ugly. But that's the way poker is. It's up and down. You never know when it's going to turn in your favor. So I don't think I ran awful. I definitely got lucky with this last hand. I mean, if anyone put in any kind of raise pre-flop, I was folding. And of course, I happened to be up against 2 opponents that had hands that they really had a hard time folding. So for the week, it was pretty good. Ended up winning $1,190. If some of those big draws didn't come in for my opponents, it would have been much better. Of course, it all balances itself out because I get lucky with the 9-6 offsuit and win a huge pot with that. Just want to say thank you for all your support. Really do appreciate that you made it to the end of the video. And if you liked and subscribed, that's great. Make a comment if you want. I try to reply to all of them when I have time. For the month, we're back up to a $1,100 profit. Far, far away from our goal of $5,000, but we still have some time remaining. For the year, we're up around $17,000 winner. Not too bad, but hopefully it will get a lot better soon. Once again, thanks for all your support, and until next week, good luck at the tables, and we'll see you back here soon.